Yeah, I see you shared the screen.
Yep,
So,
we are ready. All you just need to do is just tell me when you need.
yeah, we can just go to the next slide, please.
Of course.
Okay. Okay, great. So, thank you everybody for your patience, and I'm sorry for that. And to start, what I wanted to say at the beginning of the presentation is the point of the presentation is to talk about Agile and beyond Agile, how we can apply Agile on companies and whole organizations, not only on IT department, not only on IT teams, and how we can assess the current situation of a company that's going to be applying agile methodology on their teams, on their different departments, and how they are going to be predicting in what are the goals that they are pointing for the future. So on this slide, you can see that there is different actually organization structure, teams and projects, jobs and roles, managers, careers, and so on. When we can, like, for every company, have to assess the current state of the company, the current state of each department, each organization, and what are the objectives, the goals in the future they want to achieve with agile methodology. So as an example, organizational structure, usually when a company doesn't use agile, it would be like more hierarchical business functions, and they want to be more like organized as projects, squads, teams, and shared services that is cross-functional and working together to be more like transparent and cross-functional businesses. The same for teams and projects. For example, usually for companies, teams are formed slowly over time, so there is a difficulty to identify the right skills, the right teams to form it very quickly on a very efficient level. So in the future, what companies want to do is like to have teams assemble and stop quickly to be more like dynamic and going further in the efficiency and in organization and teams. And also the other point is jobs and roles. There is actually usually roles identifications. Sometimes in teams, jobs and roles are not very well identified. And this is a very important point to have like very solid and stable and consistent team organization. So assignments and tasks in expert roles should be well identified. And also for managers, they should be more like on leadership perspective. Focus more on leadership perspective, not owning the team in their careers, but they should more like work and managing the projects and sponsor people and support people as an umbrella to support them to go forward in their career. The next point is the careers. Jobs are owned by manager, not shared. So this is actually a very negative point that we usually can find in companies, very large companies. Not especially in small companies, but very large companies, we usually have this kind of impediment. So jobs should be open in transparent marketplace. So this is the point on career in agile organization. So I can go forward to, for example, talking about career, we can go forward to the culture. Culture is very important when we talk about companies and organizations. When we have like more than 20,000 employees in same company, culture become essential. So that's why we have to aim to citizenship, collective thinking, and shared values. That's why we find like companies, big companies like IBM or Google are working very hard on their cultures, and it's very important pillar in their marketing strategy. Flexibility and space. People are assigned to jobs by management, whereas that we should people thought on based skills. So we should value more expertise to have more engaged employees. And we should like have more flexibility on assigning on assigning jobs, so we can assign them on assign employees on multiple projects according to their expertise, not according to the department they are working on. So we have to do cross-functional teams. And also rewards, people rewarded by level, tenure, experience. So it's not like the most efficient way to reward people. To enhance them, to provide more value to the company, we should reward people by outcome, reputation, and sponsorship. So for me, it was important to mention that. So every company that would adopt agile methodology should think about the current state and where they want to go. And if also it's important to see if agile can achieve that for their company, because companies, of course, have different contexts, different culture, and different way of work. So we should also adapt. The next slide, if we can go to that. Yeah, thanks. This next point is that I wanted to share is agile and transparent organization structure. We see here that I'm pointing at first place on the different services that we can apply agile on, like for example, support services team, finance, HR, marketing, etc. We can apply agile to every organization in the company. Not only on IT department, and we can in this point these departments can be like organized thought by C-suite executives overseeing long-term view, whether on geographic, brand, product groups, customer segment, and all that should be thought on profit and loss responsibility to the customer. So actually, it's a whole process that should be thought, whether from the different departments to actually benefit the customer on profit loss responsibility. So, and from my point of view, what I've stated here are the value zones on geographic, brand, product groups, customer segment, that can be valued at first place. So this is my point of view about agile and organization structure. I can go to the next slide. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Yeah, the next slide, I wanted to talk more in details about the 4 pillars of agile, and then I will be like more urging everyone to have critical thinking and benefits and drawbacks of agile on organizations and companies. First one is structure. We have structure as a workforce size and location model, and reporting structure, role and responsibility, and governance. Governance is like something that we talk a lot about through the latest years, because we have to do streamline decision making, assess the risk, and check all kind of governance issues that we can have to be more structured in the company. And also to have more structure, we should identify more roles and responsibilities, as I detailed in the first slide. Reporting structure, we should identify each company her reporting structure way to simplify and detail the most important points in the reporting. And workforce size and location model, take a mission-oriented approach to workforce size and location is like to have more location model-oriented, mission-oriented, and workforce size. So this is the structure, and for the technology part, myself, I'm working as program manager on IT department. So it's a pillar that's very important to me, and I think to a lot of departments as well. So for the technology, we have 4 important points, which are supporting systems and tools. More and more we are using IT in the different departments. So systems and tools are very, very important, whether for HR, finance, and any other department. Architecture evolution, enable design and evolution of architecture based on requirements. So architecture is very important to have evolution on our system, on the technology that we are using in the company. So that's why it's very important to point on architecture. Delivery pipeline. So we work more and more on agile teams to have more automated build, and also integration, continuous delivery processes. So it's a very important point, especially on agile environment. And the last point is IT infrastructure and operations. So we work more and more whether on cloud technologies, on infrastructure, and also on on-premise technologies to keep infrastructure stable, high availability, and support rapid changes. And another point that is not mentioned in the slide, which is very important, is security. We have to make sure that there is security, cybersecurity going through all the projects that we are implementing on technology via Agile. Yeah. So the third point is people. People in Agile methodology are very important, and we focus a lot on people in Agile process. First of all, when we talk about people, we talk about leadership. So if we have an agile team and project management is not well handled, the team even if they are self-organized, responsible, unfortunately the outcome would not be efficient, would not be meeting the expectation of the client. So leadership is very important on managing people. Talent management, as we said in the first slide, we should provide more focus on talent management. So we have to attract and retain best talent. Especially on agile organization, we are very adapted to moving teams, adapting teams to the context of the change of features, etc., which doesn't provide a lot of stability to the team. So talent management is very important to retain the best people we have in the teams. The culture actually, we have to work a lot on culture, especially on big companies, because when we work on a multinational companies, culture is very important. Mindset in the team is very important to keep everybody engaged, implicated, etc. Informal networks and communications create opportunities for employees from organic networks across the organization. It's like to have communities connect with each other. It's very important. That creates a home, a second home for everyone. So for people, it's very important to focus on that on Agile. And there is a cons and pros for an Agile methodology managing people. For example, if we focus more on Agile organization, how manage the process, identifying the roles, maybe we will not pay a lot of attention to the skills that we have through the team. So we should have very good leadership, very good talent management and culture, etc. And also the process, we know that in Agile, we have a lot of process to follow. Not a lot, but we should measure it with wisely. So Agile ceremonies, we all know about that. So we should manage team processes, linkage mechanisms, create means for resources from different functions to collaborate. So we should have cross-functional teams, planning and decision processes. So we have to do like planning processes. But plans, unfortunately, even the best plans can fail, and design planning, decision making should be a way to test and learn, but not necessarily to succeed, but we should learn at every phase of the project. Performance management, structure performance management based on outcomes. We should actually measure KPI on the project. We should focus on that because the processes are made to work more on KPIs and performance management. So are the 4 points that I can mention on agile organization, and I wanted to detail that in order to focus more on pros and cons and how far agile can go on managing the structure, technology, people, and process. Yeah. So I can go next to the next slide.
Okay, Chloe,
Yeah, thanks.
You do have a question. I didn't know if you wanted to answer it before we went to the next slide, because I believe.
Yeah, I would like to. Sure.
Okay. David has a question. He says, does this presume that business and IT have been integrated?
Business and IT are integrated? This is the question, right?
Yes, that is the question that was put in the chat box.
Okay, so business and IT are not necessarily integrated, but I can detail that on how we can make cross-functional teams, whether business and IT. For example, business teams are working necessarily to express their requirement to IT teams. This is a case of study, but not necessarily can work on the same team. So this, I'm talking about cross-functional teams. So we can see it in the schema on the slide 5, if you want, and it shows how we can interact between different disciplines and organize tribes, and how we can interact between, for example, business or IT or finance and any other department in the company. Yeah. So yeah, is there any other questions?
So far, no. That's the only one that we had.
Okay, great. So
can I follow up with that?
Yeah, sure.
It seems to me that the biggest problem that we have in agility is still having 2 separate sides of the house, being business and IT, separate leadership, still separate management teams, etc. It seems to me when we look at the agile model of collapsing IT and business together in the teams, that we are a lot more effective. And that's why I put that question out there, because it seems to me that the quality and speed would actually increase if the 2 organizations became one. Communication is one of the biggest things that would be improve how we move forward. So that's just the reason why I put that there. So maybe think about that in the future when you can consider this, but I do think that's a big leap. So that's my FYI. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree on that point, because communication is very essential on agile organization, and communication, we cannot leave it like happen spontaneously, since we should organize that, we should have a structure, we should have a right process to drive communication through the company to keep it on the most efficient way. And if I understand the question.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. I will go with that. Thank you.
Okay,
Merci.
Great. Okay, so I will go through this slide when actually we see that the tribe map is like trying to give an example how we can organize tribes through the company, and how we can have cross-functional disciplines, cross-unit discipline, and how we can group it. Just a random example, but we can have more specific example according to each context, each company. And for example, we have here like different cells. We can have we can specify by tribes here, whether by expertise, whether by functional expertise, HR, finance, etc. And we have like here the displays crossing the different tribes, and we have also here the rest of organization, traditional department, project, and vice versa. So, for example, here we have different cells. For example, self-managing cells, and flow to work cell, and specialist cell. This is kind of example how we can compose our tribes and identify the different cells according to our needs. It's not very specific, but just to give an idea about how we can organize two tribes and do cross-functional teams. Any questions about that? Okay, so maybe we can go to the next slide. Okay, thanks. Here, I wanted to give an example also about agile activity groups. For example, agile activity group, we have dynamic strategy development, and the goal of dynamic agile strategy development is to give clearly relevant and shared strategy undertaken with 3 key activities integrated within the strategy. For example, I suppose if many of you have worked in big companies, they have seen that there is different entities. They do in the same company outsourcing between these different entities, and to manage that, we have to do a clear, relevant, and shared strategy. So whether managed by legal contracts, also by IT departments, how they can have shared applications, and also integrate all these kind of parameters into one strategy that should be dynamic, should not be a blocker for development and efficient process. So the key activities, we have, first of all, a sense of shared purpose. So we should go to the same purpose, all the teams together in order to have a rapid, efficient way, value-driven purpose, and business model share to drive behavior. The second key activity should be change-friendly identity. So we have to have a clear culture, clear sense of company identity, and direction stable enough to ground the organization. So we have to provide stability to the teams. It's very important to have actually a big a good ground to the organization. The third key activity should be like robust strategic intent. The current business strategy and intent that clarifies how the company differentiates itself. So the company should be able to provide her own identity. What kind of identity the company have? Whether it's more like technology-driven focus, is it more like innovative? Is it more like providing values in the market? What kind of identity the company should have is very important to keep that also in mind to the employees. So the case of study that I have suggested here, for example, that we can apply these key activities on, is that we have a corporation in the company that have 60 billion consumer finance powerhouse, and strategize for 3 elements dynamically, the 3 elements that I have mentioned. So in order to have a widely shared, well understood sense and purpose properly codified in this mission, and test and learn as the company change friendly identity and strategic intent embraces continuous change. And also that provides rapid shift in operation to adjust the aggressiveness of marketing, customer support, new product development, or R&D, research and development, and modification of product features. So actually this bullet explains what are the importance of these key activities, why we should fix these key activities in the result of that. So this is a case of study that I wanted to mention. So yeah, I nearly got to the end of the presentation, but to conclude, what I wanted to explain here is what are the cons and the pros of agile activity on the company, and also how we can use that on a high level business, not only on IT department, but also on the different departments of the company. Yeah. So I don't know if anybody have any questions. Yeah.
Could you go back to the give us some samples of those specialized cells that you were talking about?
Yeah, the tribe 1, tribe 2, right? Agile blueprint tribe map.
Yeah, I think it's 5, is it? Slide 5.
It's the 5th slide, right?
Yeah, thank. Just give us some samples of these specialized cells.
Yeah. So you want an example for these specialized cells, right?
Yeah, a couple, please.
Yeah, sure. Actually, we can take an example of regulatory and compliance department. In regulatory and compliance department, we can have different teams. For example, you can have data IT teams. You can have also more architecture teams, and you can have, for example, for the cell-free regulatory applications team. So for the cell 1, cell 2, cell 3, they can have cross-functional use case, because we can consume data, the regulatory data from cell 3 to the cell 1 in data team. We can ingest this data. So we have cross-functional use case. And also the cell 2, which is architecture team, can be also working with the cell 1. So this is a use case how we can have 3 teams in the same department, the same tribe, working the 3 of us, the 3 together, yeah, as one discipline.
Yeah, again, talking about agile teams, traditional architecture teams need to go away. Architects need to be on teams. It's really, again, speed of agility, and architects need to be trained in emergent design, and that's both in data and physical architecture. The reason for that, again, is, this is bloat. Some of these specialized cells are bloat. Today, a big one is DevOps, and it's unnecessary to have a separate specialized cell for DevOps. It's almost like an ego trip. They should be on teams, and they should be training teams with a lot of this, the ability to individualize and separate from having specialist cells. When you mention legal, that's a non-functional requirement. So you design that into the build. You design a lot of that into a definition done. I'm sure everyone on this call knows what a definition done is. It's functionally built into the team. So just sharing again is think about these things as you evolve this slide deck.
Yes, I agree on that point. Yeah, sure.
I have a question relating to what he just mentioned and covered. If you happen to have a lot of cells and a lot of tribes, it doesn't make sense for some of those special or shared services to be in each cell. So I would take it then you would want to minimally have those people at the tribe level. And that's the way I took this drawing on having, whether it's a specialized cell or cross-discipline on the tribes. Is that correct?
Yeah, can you repeat again the case? So we have, the question is if we can have a cell and put it on, I didn't understand the question, sorry. Yeah.
It's directly following up to what was questioned and mentioned before. Ideally, you would want those roles covered in each cell, but if you happen to be in a company that has several hundred cells and several dozen tribes, it doesn't make sense to have someone specialized in architecture or someone specialized in compliance to be in each cell. So then you would either have it as a separate cell in a tribe or some sort of cross-discipline group. And I'm just asking if that's correct based on what you're
Yeah, I understand the point. Usually in the case of architecture teams, especially architecture teams, since they can be working as a cross-unit discipline. It's not like a team that's going to be working independently. It should be like interacting a lot with different teams of the company, especially IT department. So I agree with you on that point. It should be on the in the case of cross-unit discipline, and they should be they can be on a cell by itself, because we can have a team of enterprise architects that are doing governance, but at the same time, when they are doing governance of a different project of the company, they can be interacting in cross-functional way with the different teams. Yeah, so I agree with you on that point. So it's something that we can visualize differently here. Yeah.
We do have a question from our LinkedIn Live, and it's, how do you introduce the new business responsibilities to communicate with IT?
Yeah. So new business responsibilities, for example, if you have new business requirements, how we can drive that into right communication process with IT. So if I understood the question right, so it should be driven through the right process. For example, in the slide where I talked about the process, we should be have linkage mechanisms. So we have to create means for source for different functions to collaborate. It should be whether with functional teams and IT department, and this kind of processes should be handled by the management at first place. And we should also work more on the structure. For example, it's working on the process, on the structure at the same time. The structure, how we can drive this communication or functional communication requirement to the IT department, and how we can handle that at first place.
Great. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, I'll give another question. I love picking this stuff apart. Where's your support? Meaning once this product is out to production, where does the support fit in?
Yeah, once the product is in production, where does the support fit in the tribes, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so the support can be handled in two different ways. Whether we have already support team, so it would be a cell itself in the tribe that is supporting all the different applications of the company. Usually we have in big applications, we have a support team dedicated for that. For there is another use case that we have like an application that is deployed on the production, and the same team have deployed the application on production will have a support phase. So it depends on the application itself. Whether it should be like what is already, if it's already deployed on production, it's we have maintenance on that, if you can call it this way, and we are managing the maintenance only. So we can create the cell itself in the tribe. And if it's a newly developed application, so the maintenance team, the support team that don't have experience to handle that, we can keep the same development team who developed this application, do the support on this application, and reduce the cell that developed the application to a smaller team just to keep the support going the time that it should be.
Oh, you're so close. I like the second one. Don't like breaking it down into a support team. So when you build a model, many teams are doing this now, is that they support it themselves because they have the knowledge, they have the hands-on, they built it, and they can fix it straight away. When you hand it off to another team, there are so many communication issues. You have to build documentation to support it. Oftentimes they come back to the team. So my suggestion there is to consider a self-supporting team that is entrepreneurial in itself, and again, is supporting everything that applies to that particular product.
Yeah, totally agree with that, because the second option is more like even adapted to the teams itself. When they gain experience on the product, they can support it very easily. And the documentation point is very important, because documentation on applications is essential, even in agile methodology, because teams can move forward on other application, expertise can move, and we should keep going the applications through documentation. Yeah.
Okay. And if you don't mind, anyone ask a question, because I do have a couple more.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I don't want to take that up the whole space. Is there anyone else that have some questions? Because I got two more, I think. Okay. Well, the first one, you said documentation. Documentation on the application side should be written into code so anyone can take it. So you don't need external documentation other than customer documentation. So that's the thought there. Do you have any comments there?
I can have a comment on that. Usually when we do governance on the projects, we do documentation, whether it's a solution architecture document, or we have risk assessment documents. So even if we are agile, there is some documentation for applications like going on the cloud migration that have big architecture that should be documented and go through a whole process of governance.
Okay, fair enough. And then could you go to the first or second slide, which is moving to the new organization model?
That one?
Yeah, that looks like it.
Okay.
So I have got a couple of interpretations, and I apologize to everybody else, but I do like to nitpick.
Okay. Try to zoom in a little bit for you. There you go.
My pleasure. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. First of all, the assignment, you should take that out. Task and assignments. The role already knows what its task and assignments. When you put task and assignments, I'm assuming a basic, kind of, what am I trying to say? Project management model. Now, in these roles, the Agile is you create the task yourself, you create the assignments yourself, right? If you're building a team, you preferably want that team to build itself. So there's a lot of things here that have traditional terminology, and you may not be, it may be that just my idea and yours ideas are probably the same, but it's just a terminology. So that's just one FYI. And I thought I had another one here.
Just to respond to that, actually this slide is more to focus on what is traditional and where we should go. So maybe that responds to your question.
Yeah, so the future, if you look at that under jobs and roles, the job should be determined by the person itself, what they do.
I see.
When you say assignments, I'm thinking PMP. Okay, I'm a manager. I'm telling this person to do X, Y, Z. Now that X, Y, Z usually applies to performance, right? We want to get that out the way. That should not apply anymore. That person determines what the work is done with his or her team, and then they work it together. So it is, just in case you're thinking that way, I'm giving you an FYI on how to alternatively think. Does that make sense?
Totally. I think we are aligned because what I wanted to say, for example, as a current state for a company that doesn't use Agile, they usually rely on job descriptions, going back to the book, job levels, job titles,
Yeah.
very hierarchical kind of thinking. But we wanted to avoid with the hierarchy, this kind of job descriptions way, and go more on expert roles, tasks, and maybe the word assignment and task, it's a big word to say. It shows that we are assigning as a project manager the tasks, etc. But it means like more assignment in a way that it's self-responsible, self-organized, and in the team itself. They are auto-assigning the task, and they are more in an expert role. But I understand the point. You are right also about that.
So I think that's a good clarification for you, for me, for everybody to know about that. And then the last thing, and you did mention this word hierarchical. I always have a problem with that, because if you really want to change a company, you kind of move away from that terminology and find a structure, an agile structure, and there's many out there, how you flatten or maximize flattening a hierarchy. And my suggestion is just to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with that, because flattened hierarchy is what is needed in organization right now. People doesn't like working in very different levels of hierarchy. They don't like stepping a lot of have a lot of steps to go to the direction. They want to get directly to the direction, speak with them, express their point of view. So flat hierarchy is a good point as well. I note that. Yeah.
Appreciated. Great slide deck. Thank you very much.
Thank you.